Welcome to the Pivot Experience podcast, where leadership transformation isn't just a concept, it's a journey we take together. This is where real leaders share real stories about the moments that changed everything. In each episode, we dive deep into the pivotal experiences that transformed good leaders into great ones. Whether you're a seasoned executive, a rising star in your organization, or someone ready to take that next big step in your leadership journey, you're in the right place. Get ready to learn, grow, and maybe even find that spark that ignites your own leadership pivot. This is the Pivot Experience podcast, where your next breakthrough starts here.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your friend, Pastor John R. Adolph from the Antioch Church in Beaumont, Texas. Hey, listen, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe this channel so you can continue to pivot into your next.
All right, guys, welcome to Lead Better. This is our virtual platform in which we do every month. We like to bring in extraordinary talent to talk about different matters of leadership. My name is Alex Seal. I have on today's call Giovanna and Ashley, and we're going to get started here in just a few seconds. We're going to give a little bit more time to let some more people get in here. Thank you so much for joining in. If you will, make sure that you're paying attention to the chat function. There will be messages going through the chat function as we go through this talk today. Also, just be aware that this session is being recorded. And so this will be used and repurposed for other items in the future. Do me a favor, for those of you who are on the line so far, will you put in the chat where you're from? And if you work at a Chick-fil-A, put the Chick-fil-A name in which you work at, the restaurant that you work at. And like I said, I'm going to give it a couple more seconds, and then we're going to get to rocking and rolling because I want to be respectful of everyone's time here today. All right. Okay. Get the chat open here. Okay. And before we get all the way started, I just want to thank you so much, Brad, for being willing to join us today and being a part of what we're doing here today. I know it's a Sunday. I know you've got 3 beautiful children and a wife that you could be spending time with, but you are spending time with us here today, helping people learn more about cultivating talent. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. The time now is 7:03. Again, my name is Alex Hill, and I am the I guess you would say the founder and the creator of the Pivot Experience, where our objective is to help leaders pivot into their next. Again, this is Lead Better. We implemented Lead Better for the objective to create a space and a platform to help people get better and help folks get better during a time frame in which we think that they will be available. You know, Sundays are usually our days to rest and recharge, and so we want to leverage the day to try to get a little bit better with you all. On today's session, we will have Brad McDonald, who is of Pattern Talent. But before I introduce him fully, I want to introduce our team. I'm going to first of all introduce Neff. He is not with us today. He has another engagement that he is attending right now, but he is our bilingual specialist. And so all the coaching that we do in Spanish is facilitated by Neff. Neff has over 10 years with the world's most caring company, and we really appreciate everything that Neff does. On the line with us also is Ashley Allison. She is a leadership coach with us here at TPE. She's almost at 10 years. She has 8 years of experience with us here at TPE, and she's working the controls and the switchboard, I guess you would say, today for us. And that would be Neff's job normally, but she's on top of that today. And then we have Giovanna, our beloved gavel, and that's an insider. If you guys have been following us here during our Lead Better journey, we've been talking about her personality as the gavel, and she proves to us each and every week why she is the gavel, and we appreciate what she does. She's really starting to focus in on LDP, TDP, specialization in helping people communicate their voice, communicate their story. And she's also a wonderful leadership coach as well. And our guest today is Brad McDonald. And I guess I'll give you guys a little bit of backstory on how Brad and I met. I was doing some networking on LinkedIn, and I kept seeing stuff come across my timeline from this guy that owns a company very similar to mine. And I really liked liked what he was doing. And not forgive me, Brad, I don't know who messaged who first, but we ended up having a conversation, and he was kind enough to join our platform and do a podcast episode with us, and that's out. Has been out for a few months now, and I really enjoyed having the opportunity to extend the same offer back to him and to his podcast, The Daily Leader. And I forget your co-host's name, but their synergy is almost unmatched. Being on the call with them, listening to them go back and forth and to facilitate the leadership conversation that we were having, I really enjoyed it. But I'm gonna let Brad kind of give a spill on who he is and what he's about, and then we're gonna have a little bit of an icebreaker that I honestly stole from them. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna give flowers where they're due. I was amazed by this activity that they had me do during our podcast episode, and I just, a lot of times in our world we say if you don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to, and so definitely did that in this arena. So Brad, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome on. How are you doing today?
Thank you to each of you. Thank you to the Pivot Experience listeners. It's so much fun to get to be on with you guys tonight. And yeah, as far as as far as some of our agenda tonight, steal it all, dude. We're here to develop leaders. That's what you and I have in common. That's the passion of your team and of the people who are working with me on the Daily Leader and Pattern Talent. And so whatever works, let's go put it to work, and let's develop as many leaders as we can. We know that bad leadership is pervasive, and it's incredibly damaging. I mean, it takes like 30 seconds of watching the news or scrolling, X to see how much bad leadership hurts the lives of just normal average people all across the globe. And so, that bothers me. That really gets under my skin. That keeps me up at night. And that's the enemy that I'm fighting every day when I wake up and I go do what I do at Pattern Talent. And so, man, I'm all about what you guys are doing at the Pivot Experience. I can't recommend you guys enough to those aspiring leaders who are trying to grow, and they're trying to commit to a greater version of themselves, and they're trying to achieve some ambitions that they find in their heart, and they just need help getting there. And that's what you guys do, and that's what I do. And so I'm super glad to be on that journey together with you all here.
Thank you so much. And so as I alluded to earlier, we're going to play a game of tug of war. Okay. You guys call it slow burn, and it's such a good name. I try to do the best I could to add our own flavor to it without stealing all of the sauce. But so we're going to do tug of war. And so for those of you guys listening today, tug of war is, I'm going to give Brad 2 words that he has to land on one and say why he landed on that one. And these words are words that you typically would like to have them both, but we're going to force Brad to pick one and stand on it. Okay. And so Brad, so here's your first set of words. Okay. Would you rather have empathy or accountability?
I love this one. I do not like picking. I want both, right? And that's the beautiful thing, that we as leaders, right? We learn how to manage these tensions, and we teach and train other people on how to do that. But if you're telling me I've got to pick one and I can't pick the other, I'm going to have to go with accountability.
And if you would, why would you pick the accountability over empathy?
Oh, man, this is tough. Someone once said to me, a leader that I look up to and respect and learned a lot from, once told me that accountability is the bedrock of leadership, or it's the backbone of leadership. And I just don't think that you can ultimately have leadership without accountability. I think it's one of the things that makes leadership what it is by nature. And I think that you can have leadership without empathy. Now, I'll qualify with saying that your leadership without empathy is not nearly as good or as sustainable or as healthy as leadership with empathy. But if you don't have accountability, I don't think you can have leadership. I think you got something else altogether.
Heard. Very good. Very good. All right. Next set of words: innovation or consistency.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Giovanna, for that. Yeah, just laugh, right? This is hard. For better or worse, I'm going to have to say innovation.
Okay.
Even though the thought of innovation without consistency does make me sick to my stomach. It's just my personality. It's my draw. I just think upward and onward, man. Like, leaders go forward, and they don't always do it well. They don't always do it at the right pace. They don't always do it in a healthy way, but man, the leader is going forward. And so that to me is innovation.
Excellent. Recognition or development?
Development. This one's, this one's not even a test for me. I want to be a self that transforms. I want to look into the future 10 years from now and imagine a stronger, healthier, better version of myself. And I want to look back in the past 10 years ago and see that I've made massive growth, and that the person that I am today is far more healthy and strong and mature and valuable to his relationships than the Brad in 2014.
Got it.
And so that's where I would go with development.
Okay. Clear expectations or freedom?
Freedom.
Okay.
Freedom. Leaders cannot lead without a variety of types of freedom. And so if you want leadership, real, honest, true, great leadership, you've got to have freedom.
Excellent. All right. Here's the last one: results or relationships?
Oh man, this is the torture rack right here. This is the classic Chick-fil-A paradigm, right? And this is where we were trained to value both and. Yeah, and you don't get it on this call. So I'm going to go with relationships. I don't always actually lead that way. You can ask anybody who works for me or with me.
Likewise.
And they would tell you, Brad, that is very aspirational of you. But I know the right answer. It's just hard to do it, man.
Yeah. No,
it's just hard to do it.
That resonates with me for sure. I tend to in my heart of hearts want to prioritize the relationships, but sometimes those results just keep knocking at my door, and so I definitely understand that. Thank you so much.
The P&L comes every 30 days. I mean,
but where you have to look at it is relationships produce results, and I think that's the tension is like.
Right.
Because I'm results driven too. I'm like, come on, let's go. We got to make this happen. But I sometimes do that at the, the cost of building that personal relationship, And so I think results built relationships. I mean, I said that at the Houston Collaborate event we just did. I was like, I mean, you got to have those relationships, but that is the aspirational me as well.
Well, I'm not alone here.
That may be our new phrase. Those things are aspirational for us, Giovanna. We're
working on them.
We're working on them. All right. So today's session is going to be focused on cultivating talent, and we're going to be talking in 3 primary buckets today. The first part of our conversation is going to be talking about identifying top talent. Then we're going to segue into nurturing nurturing talent for growth. And then the third piece is going to be retaining talent and building an aligned team. And I think this is something that Brad can really speak into. And I don't know if Brad mentioned this, and I'm going to mention it on his behalf if he didn't. Brad has a goal of developing 1 million leaders with pattern talent, a very aggressive in the Chick-fil-A world. We would say that might be big, hairy, and audacious to say that you're going to develop a 1 million leaders. But as I said earlier, that Brad and I have had conversations, and I know that he's passionate about this. And cultivating talent has to be involved with some of those 1 million leaders. And so I think he's going to speak very well into this topic. And so we're going to start this thing off with identifying top talent. And I want to ask you, Brad, to kind of just speak into understanding the key characteristics of top performers. When you think about top performers, what makes them tick? In the things that you observed in your work, and can you just talk into that for us?
I'd love to. I love the question. I'm going to give them to you rapid fire here, and then we'll kind of unpack some aspects of this that you guys might be curious about. Okay, but I'll say this: all top performers possess 4 things. The first is identity. They have a clear sense of identity. Now, it might not be rooted in something that is healthy or sustainable or appropriate, but they have a sense of identity and it is clear to them. Okay, the best, easiest place to see this, I would say, is like high school sports, right? Imagine that high school sports player who is their sport. Then they get injured and then they have to ask the question, oh no, I am not my sport. Who am I now? Right? But what makes you a top performer is a clear sense of identity, even, again, if it's healthy or unhealthy. Second is trust. So they're trustworthy. Now, that trust might be more heavily weighted on their competence or their skill set than it is their character, and if whether or not they have an integrous, congruent character. But you ultimately can trust a high performer to perform their function. And without that trust, they cannot be a high performer, and they wouldn't be a high performer. A third, this one's implicit, but important to state and make explicit, is skills. They're actually very good at their strengths. They've got strong strengths, and not only that, but they know how to use them. They know how to use their skills to get things done, to achieve things, right? And then lastly, I would say this is absolutely critical and maybe the most foundational to a degree, is a growth mindset. They know how to improve upon the performance that they have, and the highest performers also know how to help other people. So identity, trust, skills, and a growth mindset.
Love that 4. So you mentioned that you're going to unpack those a little bit in some more detail for us. Do you have some added context to those 4?
You know, I think that how I kind of arrived on these was through a set of questions, and basically as I've been building out my model for developing leaders, I've just always loved and been drawn towards asking questions. And so identity deals with the question, who am I? Right? That comes down to a character issue, right? And oftentimes, especially in the Chick-fil-A world, we'll use 3 C's. So we'll talk about character, we'll talk about chemistry. Chemistry, oftentimes, it kind of gets dumbed down to this question of likability, right? Can I be relationally connected? But chemistry is ultimately about this. It's, can I help you to trust me? Can I create a high trust relationship with another person? In the Chick-fil-A space, we call that care, right? Care is a blend of both warmth, the ability to connect with you relationally, that Southern hospitality that Chick-fil-A is so known for, and then yet at the same time, competence. We actually have a really fast drive-through and amazing product. So trust is ultimately a function of our chemistry. And then third would be competence, right? Competence isn't just our skill set, though. It's asking the question, what is my unique value proposition? What am I uniquely gifted to do? And how can that create value for you? And then lastly, capacity, right? Which is, how do I develop myself and other people? So who am I? How do I build high trust relationships? What is my unique value proposition? And how do I develop myself and other people? Top performers, leaders, they can answer those 4 questions.
Excellent. I love that. I love that. So I know that you work independently in pattern talent. So you're not necessarily working in a situation where you're tasked to identify top talent. But for those people that you work with, what techniques would you offer them if they're looking to try to help develop not necessarily develop, identify top talent in their restaurant or in their organization?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. We're working on this as we onboard. We just onboarded our first full-time executive coach and associate consultant. And so we're in grow mode, and I'm asking this question as a business owner and founder myself. And I recognize how scary it is to hire. It's just scary. We've got an owner operator client right now, just opened her first unit, a brand new grand opening restaurant. She's in the midst of hiring leaders. Terrifying, right? And she's doing a great job, but that doesn't make it any less scary. And I would tell you this, as I go about searching for leaders, I tend to see people who have that kind of natural born leadership capacity that we all love to see. We see it in young leaders. We see it in early emerging leadership, maybe the first time that someone shows aptitude for management or as a supervisor. And I like to think of that person as somebody who has a very high degree of personal responsibility. We call this ownership in our space, right? We use that word a lot. And it's like they are personally responsible for everything that they touch. All right. Another word we use for this is stewardship. They have a strong sense of stewardship. Secondly, I would say initiative. That stewardship is paired with this sense of eagerness to go first, to serve, and to figure it out. And then I would say they've just got great relational intuition. They've got EQ, or as the kids call it today, they've got feel, right? They just have feel. And you know when there's a leader who's trying, but they have no feel. It's awkward. And so I would say I'm oftentimes looking for some of those just natural, kind of born into you. God gave it to you when he thought you up and put you on the rock, spinning around here. He just said, Ashley, she's going to be a natural born leader. That's just how I'm going to wire her up. Right. But then there's also potential leadership that doesn't have that feel. They don't have that natural born intuition and ownership, and they're learning and growing and they desire it, but they're not naturally equipped with it. And so I think that those people demonstrate a really strong sense of purpose. They kind of take that initiative and that they see other natural born leaders taking, but they pair it with a sense of teachability and a sense of always continuously improving. So you don't necessarily see them as being a high performer right away, but you do see them as growing aggressively. And that, I think, is a great marker for someone who is a potential leader, because you can see their incremental progress towards a goal or a skill set. I think that that's oftentimes coupled by just good old-fashioned hard workmanship. Like they just show up and they just have a high level of output. Like think Energizer Bunny. Think like they don't get tired. What are they drinking? Why don't they get tired? They're always putting forth a maximal level of effort. And it's kind of baffling to the mind. And then the last thing I would say about this second category, these maybe aspiring leaders who aren't naturally gifted, but they need development, they actually have the want to. They have a sense of ambition. And there are a lot of people who like to work hard, and there are a lot of people who like to learn. But leaders require ambition, because leadership is hard and it's painful. It's very tumultuous and it's very costly. And if you don't aspire to that suffering, you just won't do it. You will choose out of the pain that comes with managing and leading other people.
Very well said. Very well said. And as we wrap up this first section of the conversation, are there any tools or assessments that a leader that's on the line could use to help them identify talent in the organization?
That's such a good question. And I'm a big proponent of using tools and assessments. There's the ones that we're all familiar with. Think about DISC. MBTI or Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, Working Genius is really popular right now, just on the heels of Enneagram, which was really popular for the last probably 5 to 10 years leading up to the Working Genius dropping and really picking up steam as it has in the last couple of years. And so I think that all those tools are fantastic. And I'm a big proponent of them. We use some of them in our business. I'm sure you guys do as well. But what I will tell you is that the assessment that you're using or the tools that you're using are not as important as the fact that you are using assessments, because assessments, irregardless of which ones you choose, they drive conversation. And what they do is they make the invisible and internal processes going on inside of my head external and visible to you, right? And now we can both see how we process information, how we make decision, and how we're motivated. And when we have that shared knowledge and language, we're able to take our work together to a whole new level at a whole new pace. And so I'm a big fan of using any of them because it drives a deeper conversation.
No, I love that. And real life story here. We recently had a conversation with an operator on a different topic, and he mentioned he's a football guy, and the head coaches on the sideline usually have these cards, the play card, and he mentioned that all of his team has done the Working Genius, and on their play card is everybody's Working Genius. And literally he says they're sitting in the meeting, and then he starts to get frustrated, and he pulls out the card and go, this is why I'm getting frustrated, because of right. This is your tenacity is showing. So I understand why we're having a rub. So no, I love that. I think sometimes just being transparent, we get caught up in the newness of an assessment, or to try to ride a trend of an assessment and truly not use it to its full potential. So I'm glad you said that. Just kind of as a reminder to not only deploy the assessment, but to actually use it on the day in and day out basis on when you're interacting with each other, because that shared language is important. I love that. So we're going to move into nurturing talent for growth. We've already talked about just how do we spot top talent. Now we want to talk about how we grow top talent. And so what are some of the strategies that you would suggest or that you've seen work in developing existing talent through training and mentorship?
Yeah. If you asked me, Brad, how do you develop a leader? I would give you my 4 questions, right? And I would say, hey, every leader needs to be able to answer these 4 questions. And then if you said, okay, that's great. Well, how do I help them answer those questions? Right? I know the content of those conversations. I know where I need to get them, but I don't know how to get them there. How do I nurture these individuals and develop them to become the leaders that they're capable of being? I would give you another 4-stage process. The first stage would be coach, right? What is inside your mind needs to be brought outside, just like the assessments. Okay, assessments are a great place to start a coaching conversation, because it begins the process of asking good questions, of listening carefully, and of giving the developing leader an opportunity to draw out what's inside. And so in the process of coaching, we discover things we know that we didn't realize we knew. We know them, they're in us, but we just don't realize it because we haven't verbalized it before. And so I'm a big proponent of beginning leadership development with the coaching process and including the coaching process on a regular schedule and rhythm as a leader develops. Number 2 is consult. Okay. And they won't all be C's this time. All right. Forgive me for that. That's just the Chick-fil-A coming out. That's the 1990s, early 2000s Chick-fil-A coming out of me. Okay. Consult deals with advising someone, right, based on who they are and their specific goals. We're not just talking about giving them blanket information that might apply to anyone, but what advice, what guidance can we give them that applies to them for their particular goals? Third is teach. We actually want to give them new knowledge. Maybe there's a book, or there's a resource, or there's a podcast, or there's another person who's going to give that developing leader information that they've not yet encountered. And that encountering that new information and incorporating it into their thoughts and behavior patterns is going to elevate their growth. And then the last one is train. So we've got coach, consult, teach, and train. And training is about providing a sandbox. Okay, a sandbox is a safe place to play. It's a place where you can fail. You don't go into the sandbox and win anything, right? You don't go into the sandbox and succeed and all of a sudden, you are getting a trophy. No, the sandbox is just open play. It's just free play. There's no grades in the sandbox. A sandbox is a place where you can build it and knock it down. You can fail. You can just explore what it means to play. And that's what we need to provide developing leaders with. In leadership skills, they require a lot of repetitions. These are not things that we get good at overnight, even when we are naturally predisposed through our personality to leadership. So it's important that they have a place where they're safe and they can really train and perfect their craft as a leader. So coach, consult, teach, and train. That is how you nurture leadership.
Awesome. And so that to me, I love that 4-stage process. And I guess the next question would be, as you're going through that 4-stage process and you have leaders that have exited maybe that 4-stage process, how do you create an environment and culture that continues to nurture them as a leader? If we're in the restaurant and we have an individual leader going through that process and then they enter into the general body of leadership, how do you keep that general body of leadership engaged and ambitious towards the goals of continuing to be better?
Well, I love the way you're framing this, right? You're framing the idea that an organization would be so intentional that it would have this kind of general body of leaders that it's developing and growing. And a lot of organizations, I think, do move into autopilot, right? They promote people based on the quality of their skills. Okay, they're really good at a job, and so they get promoted into people leadership. We think, you're good at this, you would be great at managing other people who do that too. All the while misunderstanding that the skills of the individual contributor, right, the task-oriented skills are very different than the people or relational-oriented skills that the manager is required to perform. And so we see this a lot in the restaurant environment in particular. I know you guys you're tempted in your businesses, I should say, to do this every day. You see someone who's a really, really strong bagger and shift leader, and you think, well, let's make him a director. And the answer is pump the brakes on that. We need to evaluate their capacity to develop other people, not just to get work done very proficiently. And so I think that's the kind of starting line, right? We have to be careful who we are moving into that general body of leadership. We need to make sure that that's actually something that number one, they want, number two, that they're equipped to do, and number three, that they value. They actually value that and they have ambition for that kind of work. And then secondly, I think we have a grow or go policy, and we are way too comfortable, right, as human beings, in stagnation and in laziness. The human brain loves comfort. It loves routine. It loves knowing the sun's going to rise and set. Traffic's going to hit on this street to this street. So-and-so is going to do this. So we love prediction and prospecting. And we have to intentionally fight that. And so I think as leaders who control the makeup of the team, we have to be very intentional to say, hey, in this culture, right, in this brand, we are stewarding and guarding it. You either grow or you go. Those are your two options. And so number one, we're putting the right people in the right seats as leaders. Number two, we have a grow or go policy, or we don't allow people to be stagnant. And then I would say number three, it goes back to the term that you used, Alex, which is BHAGs. Another way of saying that is impossible goals. We have to really ask ourselves, not like, what do we think we can do, but what are we capable of doing? And that is a radically different question. So when I have a goal and I think, okay, I'm going to hit, like this year, let's say that my goal was, well, I'm going to serve 100 clients with my executive coaching or consulting. And I would say, man, that's like double what I'm doing right now. That's so many people. How am I going to do that? I'm going to have to hire. I'm going to have to blah, blah, blah. But I can do it. I know that I can. Well, I might ask myself, what might it look like for me to serve 500 people? What if I got really crazy, like completely lost my mind and said, you know what, this year I'm going to serve 1,000 people with my coaching and consulting services? That exercise creates a demand on my mind to rethink and reimagine who I am as a person, what I am capable of, and what tactics I might use to go about achieving my goals, because you serve 1,000 people very differently than you serve 100 people. And so I think the tool of BHAGs or impossible goals is a very growth-oriented tactic to push the people in the organization who are in charge of others to really deeply think about what their capability or what their potential is, not what is likely for them to achieve. And then I would give you one more idea that I think is really important. And I do think it is, depending on the culture, it is underused, and depending on the culture, it is the only one that's used, and that's incentive. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but I've never woken up one day and said, man, I've got enough money. In fact, every day I've ever woken up, I've always thought, man, it'd be great to make a little bit more money. I'd really like to just have another dollar in my pocket, another $10, another $1,000. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the only one on the call who feels that way. But man, do I like getting money. It just really makes me happy. It makes my life better. And so I think that what we need to do is remember that we've got families, we've got expenses, we've got medical bills, we've got divorces, we've got car payments, we've got kids in school, we've got all this crazy stuff hitting us every day. And as employers and as leaders, if we have financial fuel that we can give to those high performers, we need to use it. And we need to make pay and compensation a very competitive and attractive part of the offer to be in our organization, because in the world that we live in today, post-COVID, remote work, it's easy to go make more money. And so I hate to see employers and companies getting stagnant around their compensation, because I think they lose a lot of incredible talent when they're unwilling to get a little bit more aggressive on the pay side.
No, I love and I love everything you said, but I really want to tap into the you called it, you took it from BHAG to impossible goals, and I like how you expanded on that. I love doing these sessions because typically we are in the business to help people get better, but we always have the mindset of continuous growth and improvement. And so I've had an aha moment. And thank you for that, Brad. We always talk about, and Ashley can attest to this, and she might get a little frustrated, but now I have a little bit more fuel to kind of steer the conversation. But it's like, when you talk about those impossible goals, you think it's not necessarily to say, hey, we're going to hit that next week or hit that next month, but it's to really internalize what it's going to take to get there, and to ask yourself the question, currently, either A, am I capable of doing those things? Or B, if I'm not capable of doing those things, what do I need to do in order to get myself in a position to be ready for that opportunity to come? You're not going to accidentally get to 1,000 clients a year. It's going to take an evaluation of, one, identifying that's what you want to do, and then reverse engineering what it takes to be able to get there. So I love that part of this conversation, like dearly. Seriously, I do, and I am agreeable to everything else. But I really that one jumped off the page for me because I love that piece of it for sure. Thank you so much, Brad, for that.
I like the name change because I guess my working genius is tenacity. So when he makes a goal, I'm like, I want to achieve it to mark it off my list. And he wants a 98% OSAT. I'm like, I don't know if we can do that right
now. Got it.
That is a respectable impossible goal. Come on.
Appreciate it. No. Okay, so we're gonna move in, and then guys who are on the line, please feel free to use the chat function to put any questions in that you might have for us or for Brad. Once we get into, we've got about another 5 to 8 minutes worth of conversation, and then we're going to open the floor up for questions for Brad and for us. And so please use that functionality to your advantage so we can get your questions answered while we have Brad here on the line with us. And the last area that we want to touch on as it relates to cultivating talent, and so far, if we ended this call today, I think we've gotten a lot of information, Brad, a lot of tangible things that we can take back into our organizations and make some things happen. But if you will, give us a little bit more, if you don't mind, talking about retaining talent and building and aligned teams. And so what are some strategies? I think you kind of touched on one of them in your last answer, but what are some effective retention strategies that we can use to keep top talent?
Yeah, that's good. I think about personal development plans kind of being an aspect of this, right? And wanting to be in the tension of systematizing our growth strategy, because we do need to get some scale and some efficiencies in our organization. We don't want it to be a free-for-all. That's not reasonable, nor is it cost-effective. But we also have to recognize that every human being is a unique expression of life. No one's development should be exactly identical. And so I think what that means is 2 things. 1, we're developing within community. And 2, we're leveraging best practices in that process. So yes, we do need content. We need courses. We need books. We need expressed verbiage that is a part of our brand and our brand promise. So think things such as, a purpose, a vision, a mission, a value statement. We need some calendared moments where we do performance reviews. We need to know what our performance is going to be evaluated on across the board. And that should be tailored to the goals that we've committed to for, a monthly, quarterly, annual cycle, something like that. But we also need coaching and mentorship, right? And this is where, excuse me, all of us on this call, this is where we start to sell, right? Because we're like, hey, you need someone who is not a part of your organization and not entrenched in the groupthink that you are regularly being drawn into as a manager, to speak into your way of thinking and behaving in your organization, and to try to disrupt unhealthy and dysfunctional cycles. And that's what we as coaches and consultants do, right? We come in from the outside for a season of time to solve specific issues and help stop the cycle of dysfunction, or what we sometimes call the cycle of doom, right? And we redirect that momentum towards healthier, better outcomes that are more aligned with your values, vision, and mission. And ultimately, they accomplish and fulfill your purpose. And so I do think there's this tension around personalized, specific, unique development, and also organizationally consistent and scalable development, and that the best leaders find a way to strike a balance between that tension.
No, I love that. A lot of times, typically, and I think Giovanna can attest to this, and then we all can attest to this, either it being in our own individual restaurants or, sometimes organizations that we observe, you're asking for 2 different developmental plans, where sometimes it's a struggle just to have the one, whether it be an all-encompassing plan for the entire organization as a whole, or the specific plan for each individual leader. Some of us do that better than others, but I love the fact that you stress on that, the need to balance both of those in order to retain talent, because myself, Ashley, and Giovanna, and you, we all have different needs specifically as an individual. But there's also some things that we need to kind of collaborate on in terms of the overall direction of where the organization is going. So I think if I'm a leader that's in an organization that is satisfying both of those itches, I'm going to be more inclined to want to stick around, because we're growing as a team, and I'm growing as an individual player as well. You know, you can take that back to the football analogies or basketball. You know, every individual player needs to work on their skill set. Like if I'm the kicker, there's going to be some things that the quarterbacks and the offensive line and those guys are going to do that has nothing to do with me. You know, that's their specialty. Whereas but there are also going to be some times where we're studying film and it impacts all of us. So I love that. I love the way you break that down and divide that out. Is there anything else that you would like to speak into that before we move into our question segment of oh yeah, come on, Giovanna, let's do it.
I think too, one thing that I was thinking about when you were just talking was being clear with our leaders what the expectations we have for them as a leader and for the organization. So, you know, there's certain phrases we use, but like unclear is unkind. And I think a lot of times we lose good talent because there's no clarity given. And so they're struggling to see, are they successful or not in their role? And so I think that when you put performance reviews or incentivize, whatever you want to say, or using performance reviews to incentivize and give feedback, I think that's a key way to retain top talent and even, you know, just really great leaders, because really great leaders want to push and grow. And if they're not being challenged and they don't understand if they're being successful or not, they'll go somewhere else pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
So I think just being clear with a leader, what is their role in the organization? What are the things that they're going to contribute to the organization that is an overall organizational goal? And I think with Chick-fil-A, one thing that we've really noticed, or I've really noticed working with multiple different Chick-fil-A's and even our own restaurants, it's like we're given all of these metrics. And because we're Chick-fil-A, we want to be good at them all. And so then we communicate to our teams like, okay, everything is important. Well, if everything's important, really nothing's important. And so people get confused and they're like, I don't even know if we're winning. Like, And so I think you have to be clear using your values, your mission, purpose statement, all of that to like, what are the 3 to 5 things that really matter? And so then that is helpful for the leader to know, okay, these are the 3 to 5 things that really matter in my role. And I can really track if I'm seeing growth in those areas. So I think just clarity is something we could really work on. I've spoken about this in our last collab. Also too, and we just did a thing with a store and really helping them like yearly plan. And I think one of the things that kept coming up was just communication and lack of communication or lack of clarity from the operator or lack of clarity in their role. And like, that's pretty much all really great leaders want is clarity. So
that's so good. I think, you know, we're using the word alignment, right? That's kind of one of the key principles that we're talking about in this principle. There's a difference between being clear on our purpose, on the vision of our company, on the mission that we're on, the things that we do every day, the values, right? The parameters or the core convictions that we hold as we go about our work. It's one thing to be clear there. And in a franchise environment like Chick-fil-A, you have a tremendous amount of clarity on that piece of it, right? But where things get a little fuzzy oftentimes, and where we as franchise, you know, leaders and the work that you guys do on a daily basis, when you're not working on TPE, you have to move from being clear on the big picture items to being very clear on a business calendar. And there's a difference between companies that have a calendar that they're working. So let's say, for example, we want to grow transaction count by 3%. So it's a pretty normal goal for any sort of retail environment, right? Pretty makes sense, right? Want to grow transactions by 3%. Depending on how many transactions you're doing and what kind of market you're in. That could be a huge amount. It could be a small amount for other businesses, right? Point being is, if we want to grow transaction count by 3% by EOY, then that means we have 12 opportunities on the monthly cycle to win. So what number of transactions are we talking about? Well, now all of a sudden we have 4.33 weeks per month on average. So we've got 4 or 5 opportunities to win on a weekly basis. Well, last I checked, there's 7 days in a week. So now we have 7 opportunities to win our transaction count growth on a daily basis. And then, oh, by the way, there's maybe 15 hours of business in every day. So now we've got 15 opportunities to win on that one goal. And so that calendar all of a sudden becomes a magic wand for us to achieve our goals, because I don't have to win one time anymore. I can win 365 times now. And oh, by the way, what's 365 times 15 hours of business? I don't know that. That's way above my pay grade. But that's how many opportunities we can give our players to win the game. And when you start to really think like that, right, and you start to tease out different ways of measuring goals, it creates a deeper alignment further down into the organization, and then ultimately gives a deeper sense of purpose and a deeper sense of clarity to some of these loftier ideals that we kind of talk about and put on the walls, and that we sit in a closed 4-wall room and talk about as leaders. And so I'm a really big proponent of taking these things in terms of alignment and driving them as deeply into the organization, as tactically as I possibly can, as logistically as I possibly can, into my everyday, minute to minute, hour by hour operation. Because I think that is the move that transforms good leadership, leadership that's growing and heading in the right direction, from leadership that's absolutely crushing their goals.
No, I love that you bring this up. And I know we said we're getting a segue into questions, but I want to address this I want to comment on this rather, because this is something that I find myself talking to a lot of the clients that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. They have the one goal, and it's the goal, and they only assess it maybe once a month, and they're looking at it as in its totality, versus saying, which parts of the day, or which parts of the week, or which parts of the just of the hour is winning at that. A lot of times us as leaders, when we're not hitting the goal, we take that as it's all or nothing. There's probably moments in the day, whether it's, if you're looking at it from a day part perspective, and your morning time team might be hitting the goal versus the nighttime team might not be hitting the goal. But at the end of the month, you're looking at it as a complete failure, quote unquote. Whereas there was opportunities that you won that you missed, and you didn't have the time, didn't get the opportunity to recognize it, because you're not looking at it in that tactical lens, and I think a lot of times when we're talking about retaining talent and creating an environment where talent can thrive, when we don't hit those markers, and then we wave the wand, I'm gonna use the wand in a different capacity in this instance, we wave the wand to say, hey, we didn't do it. Well, that's going to demoralize the team. That's going to make them feel like they're not winning. Whereas if you're looking at it from a tactical lens, you can identify the areas and times in the business where you did hit it. How do you then look at those moments and capture the things that happen in those moments, and then bring it to the other areas of the business, or the other times of the day in the business where it didn't work? So I love the way you kind of outlined that. Right. So I'm sure we can keep going and going and going, but we want to open up the floor to any questions if there are available. I know we have a couple of people on the line. If you want to use the chat, if you want to unmute yourself, or maybe turn the camera on to ask Brad any questions directly, that is welcomed at this time.
And if nobody has anything, I have one more thing to add to that, Alex.
Sure. I think let's go ahead and do that, Giovanna.
So I was just thinking too, like the question I ask, like when you're thinking about like clarity and goals, and really getting like dialing that goal down, is like, what must get done to achieve this goal? And then you have to ask that really 5 times. You have to go 5 times on that. So if you're
so
saying
good.
3%, we want to grow 3% in transaction. Okay, what must get done in order to grow 3%? Okay, well, we have to do each month, let's say, 4,000 more transactions. Okay, what must get done in order for us to hit that 4,000 in January? Like, let's figure that part out. And then there's an answer there. Okay, well, really what it is we need to grow, 150 transactions a day. Okay, what must get done in order to grow 150 transactions a day? And getting it kind of narrowed down, and you got to ask about 5 times. And that'll get you to like, okay, these are the 3 to 5 things that we need to do. And then you can kind of figure out too, how to communicate that to the team member. Because I feel a lot of times we'll use OSAT as an example, like our leaders do this and it drives me crazy. And I tell them like, don't do that. They're like, overall satisfaction, we're at a 79. We're killing it. Cleanliness is a this, and I'm like, the team, you're speaking a language to our team members. And they're like, overall satisfaction. Granted, they know that's a CEM score, but then they're also like, what, how does that even happen? How do we even get a 79, And so I think we've got to figure out how to communicate all the way down to the team member, how to, so transactions, if we're going to use that one, how do we grow transactions? Well, winning hearts, obviously that's Chick-fil-A. And so, using the 3 things that are operational excellence, that they've kind of now gone back to that, what was the strategy before winning hearts?
Create raving fan strategy.
Sorry, create raving fans. It wasn't in my brain, but I couldn't get it out. But like, communicating to the team members, okay, this is how we win the hearts of our guests. That's going to get them to come back more often, which will get the 150 transactions a day. And so I think we also have to figure out how to communicate that all the way down, because leaders get frustrated when they're not achieving goals. But a lot of times it's the leader who is not communicating to the team member who's playing the game every day how to win. And so then it's just everybody feels frustrated.
Well, and I, more so than ever in my life, I feel a deep and sincere compassion for leaders. I was not always that way. In fact, I think I got into this particular business because of a frustration with the leadership that I see in the world every day, thinking like, this is bad and I'm going to go fix this. But the more that you lead, the more that you work with leaders, and the more that you see their struggles, the more you really start to feel a sense of compassion that you're absolutely right, Giovanna. They just want to win. They just want to achieve. They just want to go conquer that hill and do that thing that they have a deep burning passion for. And what I'm finding more and more, and this kind of goes back to our accountability empathy tug of war, is that, time, grace, and vision are 3 essential components of the leadership development process. And they have to be reciprocal. So when I look at the person who's leading me and I have no time for them, I have no grace for them, and I have no vision for how they can better lead me, I'm making it much more difficult for them to do a good job at being the leader. And conversely, when they look at me and they have no time for me, they have no grace for my mistakes, my failures, my weaknesses, and they have no vision for who I can become, for who Brad is capable of becoming, then it just makes it a lot more difficult for me to show up and stay motivated and loyal to that leader. So when we can reciprocate time, grace, and vision from leader to follower, right? From teacher to developer, we can do some incredible things and we can achieve some incredible things. But where there's a void of those, we have a lot of friction and a lot of tension, and advancing in friction and tension is very difficult.
No, I love that. I want to say on behalf of TPE, thank you so much, Brad, for spending some time with us today. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely I am more motivated. I have been these are I take advantage of these as training sessions for myself. I never want to sit into a meeting where I don't feel like I'm growing, and I feel like this was plenty to chew on for us today. I'm hoping the same was. I hope you guys share the same sentiment that I have today. Brad, if I could actually do me a favor, hang tight for a second because we want to kind of converse with you after we get done. If you don't mind, if you have a few moments, I want to just quickly say. And typically, this is the time where we extend the offer to everyone on the line that wants to participate in coaching with us. We have a free month of coaching, and that's definitely on the table. We'll send an email out to you guys who says that, man, we love what was talked about today, and we want to extend a conversation and extend a relationship with you all to help grow and develop. If you book a discovery call with us within the next 48 hours, and you go over to tpenow.com, the same place you went to go register, and you go into the booking area and go to and select discovery call, and you book that discovery call, that will grant you access to a free month of coaching from us at TPE. Also, if you love what you heard from Brad, if you don't mind, could you tell us how if they want to get in contact with you, or at a minimum, I would say at a minimum, if you don't contact Brad in a formal sense, go find him on LinkedIn. He's posting, and I've noticed you ramped it up a little bit. I like that. He's posting a lot of good information on his pages. So if you just want to continue to maintain a long distance relationship with Brad, I would encourage you to go find Brad McDonald on LinkedIn. But if they want to enter into a deeper relationship with you, how would they go about doing that, Brad?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. It's really just follow me on LinkedIn, send me a message there, and or send me an email at brad@patterntalent.co, and you can contact me directly in that way. And I would encourage everyone to absolutely take advantage of that free discovery and strategy session that you're willing to do for them, because you're only going to grow. There is no downside. And let me ask this: what value do you place on becoming the person that you're capable of? Is it $1? Is it $100? Is it $1,000? Maybe you're like me. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on postgraduate education, training, and coaching. Tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, I dole out cash every day to make me better. And I would just encourage all of your listeners, if you have the opportunity to do it for free, to invest in yourself for free, and to have a small group or one-on-one coaching session, it just is a bad decision. It's a bad decision to not take that opportunity. And so I'm blown away that you guys are doing that. I think that's an incredibly generous offer. And I mean, can I sign up for one of those?
You sure can, and transparently, I plan on having a conversation with you at very soon about some other things. So, yeah, no, thank you so much, Brad. Thank you all for again, hang tight, Brad, for us. But that ends today's Lead Better. Hopefully you walk away from this session being better. The objective is to help leaders pivot into their next, and we do the Lead Better to help all of us lead better. Like I said, I've been saying it over and over again. It's almost redundant, but I know I'm better from this, Brad, for sure, in this conversation. Definitely loved everything that you brought to the table, and I appreciate your time. And so, guys, that is all we have for today. Unless you guys have anything to put in the chat, you guys are welcome to leave
Pastor
the
John
session.
Adolph from the Antioch Church in Beaumont, Texas. And I just want to slip this in right quick so you'll never forget. It's all about progress over perfection here at TPE.
Tap into the Pivot Experience, where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs move on to the next step.